Morning, everyone. Today we're gonna continue to see the 60s and 70s art in the United States. Morning. The last meeting we learned abstract expressionist and the pop art in 60s and 70s. Today we are going to see the rest of the art movements in 60s and 70s: photorealism, minimalism, installation art, conceptual art, video art, and feminism. And we're gonna see the postmodern art in the next meeting. So let's see the photorealism first. So pop arts focus on imagery in the mass media, inspired artists to look more closely at photographs in trend called photorealism, and they began to paint what they saw in the photographs. And Chuck Close is an American painter, artist, and photographer, and he makes massive scale photorealist portraits. And Close often paint abstract paints of himself and others, which hang in collections internationally. And Close also creates photo portraits using a very large format camera. So this is Chuck Close painting. We saw this work before. Now, when we proceed the last sketch project was the one of the example for the representation of self-portrait. So the super realistic portrait paintings on large canvases are his representative style of art. Close had been known for his skillful brushwork as a graduate student at Yale University, and Close began a series of paintings derived from black and white photographs of a female nude, which he copied onto canvas and painted in color. And he explained in a 2009 interview, he made a choice in 1967 to make art hard for himself and force a personal artistic breakthrough by abandoning the paintbrush. Throughout his career, Chuck Close has expanded his contribution to portraiture through the mastery of such varied drawing and painting techniques as ink, graphite, pastel, watercolor, contact crayon, finger painting, and stamp pad ink on paper, and also printmaking techniques such as mezzotint, etching, woodcuts, lino cuts, and silkscreen, as well as handmade paper collage, Polaroid photographs, daguerreotypes, and decorated tapestries. So I'm going to share a video to see how the artist create his portraits. Sorry about that.
So where's the starting point?
Mm, 1 second.
So where's the starting point for a painting?
Sorry about that. I'm gonna post this link in the Moodle room so you can watch it after the meeting. So let's move on to the minimalism. So minimalism is an art movement that began in post-World War II Western art, and most strongly with American visual arts in the 1960s and early 1970s. And the movement is often interpreted as a reaction against abstract expressionism and modernism. It anticipated contemporary post-minimal art practices, which extend or reflect on minimalism's original objectives. So, Donald Judd was an American artist associated with minimalism. In his work, Judd sought autonomy and clarity for the constructed object and the space created by it. So this is his work. He abandoned the painting for sculpture in the early 1960s. In his essay, Jude found a starting point for a new territory for American art and a simultaneous rejection of residual inherited European artistic values. These values being illusion and represented space as opposite to real space. These are calling like installation. So installation art is an artistic genre of three-dimensional works that often are site-specific and designed to transform the perception of a space. And minimalist artists' sculptures were shown carefully positioned in the architectural spaces of museum or gallery. And artists created installation and spaces conceived of as works of art or viewers to enter and experience. So I'm going to share a video to introduce the minimalism art. And you will see many of the minimalist artists install their work as a to use the space.
So you see a few cubes sitting in an art gallery and you think to yourself, this is the greatest hoax that anyone has ever pulled off. You immediately walk away, discouraged by the wide gulf between what you hope for when you walk into a museum and what they've presented to you. How did we get here? How could these cubes that the artist didn't even make with their own hands be important? This is the case for minimalism. First off, we're not talking about minimalism as a general sensibility or the life-changing magic of tidying up. We're talking about the art of a particular moment in time, namely the 1960s, when all of a sudden there was a lot of geometric abstract art. Some of it was painting by artists like Frank Stella and Ellsworth Kelly, but most of it was sculpture by artists like Donald Judd, Carl Andre, Dan Flavin, Anne Truitt, Robert Morris, Tony Smith, Ronald Bladen, and Sol LeWitt. Art critics called it ABC art, object art, primary structures, and cool art, but the term minimalism prevailed. These artists never called their art minimalist, by the way, nor did they like the term, or the implication that the work was so reductive that it was minimally art. But minimalism was a rejection of what came before, specifically abstract expressionism, which dominated the art market in the 1950s. These new artists wanted to remove expression completely, remove emotion, empty the work of idiosyncratic gesture, make it resistant to biographical reading. Their hard-edged, basic shapes and forms avoided illusion, metaphor, and overt symbolism. The forms were often repeated, one thing after another, in regular, non-hierarchical arrangements, rejecting compositional balancing, no artist hemming and hawing over the canvas here. The objects were impersonal, many of them machine-made, fabricated from new and industrial materials. Sometimes this entailed ready-made units, like Andre's bricks or Flavin's fluorescent tubes. They didn't want you to ooh and ah or admire the handling of paint. As LeWitt once said, it is best that the basic unit be deliberately uninteresting. Robert Morris wrote that he could hear a resounding no at the time. No to transcendence and spiritual values, heroic scale, anguished decisions, historicizing narrative, valuable artifact, intelligent structure, interesting visual experience. But what they were saying yes to was a new and startling realness, abandoning the pedestal to dismantle the separation between you and the art. Judd claimed these works are neither painting nor sculpture, but instead specific objects occupying real space. These objects aren't pointing to anything or referencing anything. Andre called his work a kind of plastic poetry, in which elements are combined to produce space. So there is no illusion of space, it just is space. Minimalism had its haters from the start. In 1967, art critic Michael Fried attacked the work for being theatrical. For him, it was an object in a room that had presence before a viewer, but it did not have what good art has, which is presentness, or an instant of aesthetic experience which occurs in no real space or time at all. But Fried really just ended up affirming exactly what the artists were trying to do, proving how radical it really was. Despite its detractors, minimalism became all the rage. This geometric, unadorned style flowed throughout the worlds of fashion, theater, and design. In short, it was cool. And then because these artists were never trying to be minimalist to begin with, they moved on to other things, and other kinds of art had its day. But minimalism changed things. For centuries, art had been trying to trick you, convince you that the hunk of rock was something other than a hunk of rock. But not this. You feel like there's gotta be some secret to it, but there isn't. There's nothing to interpret. This is what it is. It wasn't supposed to look like art of the past, and it wasn't supposed to function like it either. With minimalism, meaning doesn't rest inside the object, waiting to be unlocked. The meaning is in the context and exists in your interaction with it. But minimalism is a resistant lover. It's just not that into you. It encourages observation but doesn't draw you in. And it was never trying to. Remember, these objects were supposed to be emptied of pretension, of mastery, of the usual seduction between art and viewer, and of the grand, glorious traditions that preceded them. But the fetishization and commodification of minimalist art has complicated and polluted these ideas. What's less real than million-dollar plywood boxes? And yet, for me at least, minimalist art can still impart a strong feeling. A feeling for space, light, for presence and absence. You're aware of your own body in the gallery as you've never been before. You notice that your position in the room shapes your perception of the thing. You appreciate the architecture and the spareness. And in a world filled with complexity and information and lots of stuff, this is a balm. This is a world more simplified than the actual world is. And that I can appreciate.
Yeah. So this video shows the minimalism. So hopefully it helps you understand what the minimalism is. Now let's see conceptual art. Conceptual art is art in which ideas are paramount, and the form that realizes those ideas is secondary, often lightweight, or unremarkable. Conceptual art is art in which the concept or idea involved in the work take precedence over traditional aesthetic, technical, and material concerns. Conceptualism is not style, but a way of thinking about art, and artists have put it to many different uses. Many conceptual artists worked with language or words when written, taking on a double life as image and idea. So this is one of the example of conceptual art by Yoko Ono. The work of title is Grapefruit, which is a conceptual artist book. An artist book is a work of art that is based on the idea of a book and what a book does. So we accept that books are made of paper, are bound, and contain information. So the artist book plays on these truth. Now let's move on to the next art movement in the 60s and 70s. It's video art. Portable video cameras were first made available to the general public in 1965, and the first two works of video art quickly followed within weeks of each other. And one was by Andy Warhol, who had been asked by a magazine to experiment with one of the new devices. And the other one was by Nam June Paik, who recorded from a taxi his view of the papal motorcade during the Pope's historic visit to New York in 1965. So let's see Nam June Paik. So Nam June Paik was a Korean American artist, and he worked with a variety of media, and he is considered to be the founder of video art. So this is his work. Nam June Paik, internationally recognized as the father of video art. So he's an important figure. Created a large body of work, including video sculptures, installations, performances, videotapes, and television productions. And he had a global presence and influence, and his innovative art and visionary ideas continue to inspire a new generation of artists. So I'm going to share a video to show his video work because he's a video artist.
Nam June Paik, I knew of his art long before I saw the piece in Trenton. People say he was the father of video art. He actually did found a whole new art form.
He functioned on a level that was sort of like a Picasso or an Andy Warhol in terms of international stature.
Nam June Paik's PBS 1963 to 2000 is a spectacular video sculpture at the former NJN Public Television Building in Trenton. It was installed in 1993. The New Jersey State Council on the Arts has just spearheaded its complete restoration. Tom Moran coordinated the installation with Nam June Paik in the early 1990s, when he worked for the New Jersey State Council on the Arts.
I basically picked up the phone and called him and told him about the project. I also said that just a few miles up the road was where the Sarnoff lab was located, and that was where the television cathode ray tube was developed. He was totally on board after about the third sentence.
Lauren Otis, Executive Director of Artworks in Trenton, coordinated the restoration. Artworks is also hosting an exhibition about the video wall.
The piece is three elements. It's the neon elements, and it is the video monitors, and it is the actual content of the video monitors.
One of the modules is surrounded by languages from around the world, and this is the Paik's concern, or his celebration more so, about communication.
There are old Korean symbols, Sumerian pictograms, ancient Brahmi characters, and others.
There's certainly a lot of reference to language, which is something that he was fascinated by, language. And he was speaking several languages: Japanese, Chinese, Korean, English. I believe he spoke German and French as well. He was fascinated with knowledge in general.
The second module of 26 monitors focuses on the development of the cathode ray tube. And there's a, kind of a cute little cliche image of a house. So the idea of the cathode ray tube linked to the house, it's obviously a symbol of how important TV became.
In the content, which is very rapid fire cuts and motion, he almost does a retrospective of a lot of his collaborations. So in the video that you'll see in Trenton are John Cage, David Bowie, Yoko Ono, Charlotte Moorman, all of these artists in the world of Fluxus, one of the movements that Nam June Paik was a part of.
By the late 1990s, the old TVs and neon in the PBS video wall started to fail. The sculpture went completely dark in 2011 when the state closed NJN and decided to have Channel 13 in New York manage New Jersey's PBS affiliate. George Zenowitz of Z Signs in Trenton repaired Paik's neon symbols.
It's a lot of fun. I'm excited to be part of it. It's a rare opportunity to get to work on a huge piece of neon art by a major artist. It's a light bulb. There's like 100 neon pieces in there, and there was about 9 of them that were burned out. What happens there, it's like old-fashioned Christmas tree lighting. When one burns out, everything else on that circuit also burns out.
C.T. Louie and Rafaela Shirley from CTL Electronics in New York worked closely with Nam June Paik and now help restore his installations all around the world. They recommended replacing Paik's old TV monitors with LED flat screens. It's not something that's been done with most other Paik restorations, but in this case, there was a compelling reason.
The masking has to move, right?
Yeah, the masking looks like it's off-centered a little bit.
The artwork, which is to be on 24/7 and under direct sunlight, it was a very judicious choice to evolve towards these flat screens.
We've been working on the restoration of this piece, redoing the neon, redoing the wiring, and today the final piece, which is getting in the new acrylic. And so now you'll actually kind of be able to see the neon as it was intended. The old acrylic got crazed and kind of obscured the neon a bit. This is the ultimate gig, for sure. And peeling stuff. There's always peeling involved.
NJN Public Television interviewed Nam June Paik in 1993, when PBS was first installed.
In my case, things are not only things, but what things can mean, Not just by chance you pick up, like Duchamp or Cage did it. But in my case, I construct something, with that history.
He used something that was sitting in every middle-class living room, a television set, and he turned it into something else that people looked at and began to think about what was the meaning of this to their lives. He was very interested in the democratization of art and of ideas, and felt that television was one of the great ways to do that.
All right, so it was Nam June Paik was the father of the video art. Please remember his name. And now let's move on to the feminism. Feminist organizations had originally been formed around such issues as equal rights, and equal pay. Because images are so powerful and pervasive in contemporary society, and visual culture quickly became a feminist concern, both in art and in the media. Women art professionals organized to recover women's art of the past, to push for more equitable representation in museums and galleries, and to nurture contemporary women artists. This is Judy Chicago, who is an American feminist artist, art director, and a writer known for her large collaborative art installation pieces about birth and creation images, which examine the role of women in history and culture. By the 1970s, Chicago had founded the first feminist art program in the United States. So this is her the most famous work, Dinner Party, which is perhaps the most important work from this time. A collaborative work, the Dinner Party, was executed with the help of hundreds of women and several men, arranged around a triangular table are 39 place settings, each one created in honor of an influential woman, such as the Egyptian ruler Hatshepsut and the novelist Virginia Woolf. And the names of additional 999 important women are written on the tile floor on the center of this work. So I'm going to share one more video to see this work closer with other her feminist work. You can see this work in person at the Brooklyn Museum.
I wanted to substitute female heroes for male heroes.
The Dinner Party, a triangular table set for 39 singular women.
You have Virginia Woolf next to Georgia O'Keeffe.
Right. With the names of nearly 1,000 others on the floor around it. In porcelain and needlework, it has a spiritual, Last Supper quality, intentionally. Women volunteers did the sewing.
You know, all those anonymous stitchers in the ecclesiastical embroidery class making vestments in praise of male power, male deity. What if we took our own?
We have a discussion today related to a video we just watched together. So everyone, please go to week 15 and go to week 15.1. And this is today's topic. We just watched Nam June Paik's video, right? Who is the father of video art. And here is another link, so you can rewatch it. And this is today's topic. Please, everyone, research contemporary video artists and choose your favorite video artist. And please attach the link of their video work examples and tell us why you choose that artist as your favorite. And in the next meeting, we're going to talk about the final sketchbook submission with the guide. So please don't miss that. And again, next week, we have a final exam. On Tuesday, we're going to review all the chapters. Any question, everyone?